CEOs and business leaders, do not outsource your employment equity strategy to your HR department. We got into this theme and others in a webinar between Sakeliga and NEASA. Piet le Roux spoke with Gerhard Papenfus of NEASA about how to deal with the problem of employment equity compliance. We're going to link out to that full webinar in the description. But today in this video, we're just going to highlight some of the key salient takeaways. And the first one is not to outsource employment equity strategy, but actually to keep it within the executive. This is an executive decision that is very, very critical. Here's how Gerhard Papenfus put it in the webinar.
No, you cannot delegate this. This issue lies on the level of the chief executive. He and nobody else. You can. That doesn't mean he needs to fill in the forms, but the decision in terms of strategy lies on the level of the chief executive. And it might it might sound irritating to its HR manager, but HR is they are naturally people that wants to comply. That's why they're there. They comply.
Yes.
And you will, if you comply to this, you will comply yourself into non-existence. This call you make and you take the risk. You don't delegate it. I've seen it so many times where people, and it lies in this area and in other areas where people commit themselves towards things and then later on says, but how is that possible? So you should have read this yourself.
Yeah.
You should have made that decision yourself. That you cannot delegate.
Yeah.
This is a matter that you need to focus on. There's need to become a core focus in your business of yourself personally. You delegate that to HR. They will comply and you will no longer exist in a couple of years from now.
So Gerhard is absolutely right. You cannot delegate this decision. And the reason is because of how serious this is for your business. Right? The employment equity regulations represent a war on employers and employees. This is a war on business. This is a regulatory war on business. This is the state forcing you to construct your hiring on the basis of a government-imposed spreadsheet by 4 different job grades across race and gender and disability, basically asking you to hire in a way that no real business person ever thinks about hiring. Okay, so that's the first attack. So as a result, this immediately represents a considerable imposition of cost and inconvenience. I mean, that's even understating it. This is impossible to comply with. Given that, think of what this does to workplace morale. Hiring people on the basis not necessarily of their skills, of what they can do to the business, of the value that they can bring to the business. Yes, those things, but overlaid with what race they belong to, what gender they are. So this has major impact on workplace morale. And finally, embedded in that, of course, is ethics. For many people, this is simply completely unacceptable, ethically, to determine who you hire on the basis of things like race and gender and even disability. Moreover, this is the kind of regulation where the goalposts can shift constantly. And so being drawn into compliance is to potentially start participating in a never-ending game that you cannot win. So here's how Piet and Gerhard framed the shifting goalposts issue. Take a listen.
Gerhard, this applies currently to 50 employees, right? So if you're under 50 employees, you don't have to do this yet.
Yeah.
But the question here is yet. So maybe you're I just don't want people to be too gerust, to be too much at ease here, because we know that the government will bring this number down. So we must fight this at the 50 level now, because it's going to end up at the 20 level, the 10 level.
In Namibia, it's now 10.
Exactly. In Namibia, it's now down to 10.
It started also at 50.
Now, as they've made clear, that threshold of 50 employees can fall. And we've seen it in some contexts fall to as low as 10 employees. There's another way in which the goalposts can keep shifting. Okay, so these targets set are a 5-year target that employers must comply with by the end of 5 years. If by some chance an employer is able to comply at that time or get close to complying by undergoing, and undertaking considerable costs, huge compliance efforts, really kind of restructuring their business in a very, very aggressive way, which, by the way, I think very few businesses are willing and capable of doing. But let's say you go through this whole process, and by 5 years, you just about get there, and the department gives you a tick, is happy with what you've done. It's not going to congratulate you and send you on your way. It is simply going to turn around and produce the next 5-year targets. And we know from the department's communication that those 5-year targets are going to be more onerous than the current targets. And so you are now set on an inexorable path of a never-ending path of 5-year compliance cycles that are driving towards this concept of transformationism, right? Turning the entire workforce into a perfect representation of the demographics of the country. Okay, so that is another way in which the goalposts are going to continue to shift. So what does that mean? That means that, and this is critical, this is the next big insight, the employment equity regulations are ushering you into a fight whether you like it or not, right? This is a war on business that you cannot avoid. The decision comes down to which fight are you going to pick? How are you going to fight this? And we argue that you've got a choice between two fights. So where are we right now? This is an executive decision set. This is a war on business. And number 3, you have to choose your fight. So what are these two fights? Either you can fight this from a place of weakness, or you can fight this from a place of strength. Actually, that's an easy choice. But let's just explain what it looks like to fight this from a place of weakness. Attempted compliance. So if you try and comply with these regulations, you are going to be drawn into that endless game of compliance that I've just described. You are going to do it from a place of weakness because trying to comply with this runs into all those risks that we've just described. It's incredibly costly. It raises the complexity of your hiring. It reduces the pool of skills that you can actually search for and find. It creates ethical complications in your business. It impacts staff morale. And in a difficult business environment that's highly competitive, you have to be optimizing your staff and your hiring strategy for skill, for value, for execution. And so by trying to comply with this and being pulled into that endless 5-year compliance cycle of shifting goalposts in all directions, you are getting into a fight with the department that happens off a much weaker base. You are weakening your business in doing so. Gerhard explains this very, very well in the webinar by using a diagram, and he gets into the kind of fight that you will start to have with the department if you try and comply with this. Take a listen.
There's two options here. What people think they ask, and maybe they think they ask it, is that in 5 years' time you need to get there. In year 1 you need to be there, 2 there, more or less, there, and there. And if you're a complying type, then you will do everything you can to get there. You will sacrifice your best.
Yeah.
You will sacrifice the best guy that sits in an interview, being interviewed. You will do everything you can.
Right, so that's what it looks like to fight this from a place of weakness. What does it look like to fight this from a place of strength? And Gerhard gets into that. We can think of this as the NEASA Plan, but just for clarity, NEASA, this is not theoretical for NEASA. NEASA is a business with over 50 staff that needs to comply with these regulations as well. So this is something that Gerhard, as he explains in the webinar, is living out practically in his business. As the CEO of his organization, he is undertaking this strategy. So I think that's really important context as you understand what he is saying. And pay good attention to this because this is really, really critical from a strategic perspective. Take a listen.
That is the compliant approach, and there's NEASA's approach. And here's my approach. On what basis can I give you this? If I ask my staff, and I'm going to be blatant here, and I ask them, who of you plan to die in the next 12 months? I've never get somebody to stick up his hand and say, I'm going to die. I plan suicide. Even if they do, they don't say that. So, who's going to leave? Who's looking for another job? Nobody tells you that. So on what basis can I do this? What indicates to me that there will be vacancies? What will the growth of my business is and will be, and even if it is, even if there is growth, in what category? What is exactly the person, the type of person which I will need to satisfy the demands of my growth? I don't know that. That is impossible to do it, to know it today. So if the department says, Gerhard, I want in year 1 this improvement in your plan. I said,
write that into the employment equity plan.
And I said, but yeah, write that in. Commit yourself there. And I said, on what basis? I have no idea what you are talking about.
Yeah.
So what does NEASA give? I say, this is where I am. And I will give them a straight line. There. That's what I do. Why? That's based on what I have. I cannot give you anything else. I know there will be changes in the next year. People will come and go. But then we deal with them when we get there. So next year, then we're talking about this year, next year. We might be here. I don't know. But we might even be here. I don't know.
So you can't commit, because the problem with filling in a commitment on the employment equity plan is you're committing your business. But like you're saying, on what basis can you give a commitment? You're not forced by the minister to fill in certain numbers in year 1 already, and you cannot give a guarantee. So why are you going to fill that in on the employment equity? Because you may be lower or you may be higher. You don't know.
I don't know. There is nothing that indicates. I can look at the direction the economy goes, but there can be slow down. The economy can heat up. I don't know. I don't know who's going away. I don't know what I will need at a particular moment. So I give them a straight line, and they will not be happy with that. But, the fact that you're happy doesn't make me wrong.
Yeah.
So if you don't like it, challenge me. But if you comply, if you try to comply, you most probably, if you say, this is my line from in my first year, that is where I will be in after my first year, and you don't get there, you get there. You'll have to please explain. And you will have to give sufficient reasons for that. So you're in a fight also.
But you've now stacked the odds against yourself if you gave a target that you're not sure you can commit to.
So in year 1, you've got a problem already. And that differential will increase over time. So you have a fight with a weakened company. I have a fight with a strong company. So if you don't like my approach, who will tell me, Gerhard, based on what? And that is the question. Based on what can I get there? That's the point of departure. So now at year 2, I give them a new workplace profile. And it has changed.
You revised
so there were people that left, there were new appointments, there were people that promoted. And for that, now this line all of a sudden is perhaps there, or it's perhaps there. I don't know. It can be anything. Because I will not sacrifice the merit principle. If you appoint the second best person, and you exclude the first best person, the best person, on the basis of race, you've created a barrier for employment. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And let's be frank about it. I will not and never appoint the second best person. Hello, sir. Congratulations. You're working for NEASA now. You're the third best.
Yeah.
I appointed you on color. I hate to do that. But now you work for me. Enjoy the ride. It's going to be hard. And I always think about the best person which I forfeited.
Yeah.
And I'll ask you, do you want to work for NEASA knowing that you're the second best person? That is a slap in the face of anyone.
So Gerhard, you are describing an approach that safeguards the ability of the business to stay strong. You're also describing an approach that puts the business in a defensible position. So it now has to defend itself against the department's expectations, but not against its own overcommitments.
That's right.
That's what you got it.
That's right.
But you've drawn a horizontal line here.
Yeah.
And you're saying the department expects this is a straight line up.
Yeah.
You have to fill in these numbers, this horizontal line. That's what you describe in the employment equity plan that you submitted as NEASA.
Yeah.
What did you do for year 5? Because the government has described some the spreadsheet numbers. Do you fill in the spreadsheet numbers? Do you do that on a protest? What do you do in year 5?
This number that is not given to the department. That's in your plan. That's in your office. But the moment they see this, the department, when they see this, they're not going to be happy. Not necessarily, because
maybe they accept it, maybe they don't.
Maybe they accept it, and some do. We've got experience where they say, well, there's nothing they can do about it. But because my question is, how do you want me to get there? I've got no idea. I can't get there. But in year 2, when I submit my new workplace profile, there was movement. There were movements in my workplace. There were movements. And now they say, Gerhard, but there were movements. You've appointed 3 people. There were 3 resignations and you appointed 3 people. So you indicated in year 1 there will be 0 movement based on what you knew. At the end of year 1, there were movement. So there were 3. I said, you're right. Now then the question is, what did you do with the 3? My answer is, I appointed 3 people on merit. And if they want to fight on that, then we have a fight on that.
But it will be a fight for each one.
That will be a fight for that person, and that person. And they will have to prove to a court that I, 2 things, appoint the wrong person in their views, and that they don't like my appointment, and that I must forfeit the merit principle.
So that's what this looks like, to fight these employment equity regulations from a position of strength. Full compliance, attempted full compliance, is a position of weakness. Complete non-compliance, ignoring this, is not going to get you out of this. That is also from a position of weakness. Rather, the NEASA plan that NEASA itself is undertaking and what it is advising its clients is really something we can think of as a process of maximum appropriate non-compliance, realistic, ethical non-compliance. It protects your staff morale. It gives you a strong ethical basis on which to confidently move forward, hiring the best people that you know how to hire, that serves your business, your customers, and your staff the best that they can. That is what is absolutely critical. That position of strength allows you to live another day and to fight this another day. Okay, this is daunting, but as Gerhard explains here, you will have strength in numbers because this is impossible to comply with. Thousands of businesses will not be able to comply with this. They are good businesses, they are ethical businesses, and they have strength in numbers here, as you'll see Gerhard explain.
There are going to be big guns coming to this fight, the more absurd things are.
Yes.
We have some safety in numbers because even to the degree that one company potentially makes the target, that becomes it more impossible for other companies to make the target. It's impossible for everyone to meet this target.
So in year 2 or year 1, NEASA, but you did make 3 appointments. You said there were going to be none, but you did make 3. I said, yes. Okay, we disagree. We try to sort it out. We can't. We go to court. 3 cases. That's 3 cases. They can't do it simultaneously. Well, they can run simultaneously, but it's 3 cases. The fight is about person A. The fight is about person B. The fight is about person C.
And that is the litigation at every place, at every point where there is an attempt at enforcement, an indefensible attempt at enforcement. And there's a potential for thousands and thousands of little litigations over the next few years. and we'll see where that goes. But that's going to be a massive fight. And Gerhard, as we close, please do tell us how you think that will make the Department of Labor's offices look, because you told me you were recently there and you saw there were lots of ledgers there or files, but maybe there's room for more.
Yeah, well, actually, I wasn't there. I addressed people in Durban, and an employer came to me and he said he was there and he took some photos there. And I said, no, that's the strategy. He said, does it appear on the screen here? Now look at that. If you look at how does an office look like, so there's so much improvement that we can bring about. Look at that, spaces there, and but that's only the first layer. We want to see much more layers than that. You see, they can't cope with what they have. They've tackled a fight here, which is too big for them. They will make irrational decisions because they are trying to do in the government. Socialists think they can run a country from an office in Pretoria. That is not possible.
They can run every business from an office in Pretoria.
They can tell a business, thousands of them, strong businesses, responsible businesses, who you must appoint in what position. Well, you cannot. You cannot do that. So if that is what you want to do, well, we will respond to that, and eventually they will get stuck. They will get stuck in the mud.
All right, so let's recap. This is an executive decision to tackle, number 2, a war on business. That whether you like it or not, you have to choose between one of 2 fights: fighting from a position of weakness or from a position of strength. Now, this might seem daunting, but this is the task that lies ahead. And as a good entrepreneur, as a good business leader, you're not scared of taking on challenges. But you also have great partners in this fight. Sakeliga is opposing these ridiculous regulations, and we're in it for the long haul. We're partnering in this litigation with NEASA. But NEASA itself offers advisory services on how to deal with regulations like this. And NEASA is walking its talk. It is actually implementing precisely what it is advising others to do as well. Now, every individual case is very specific and is different. So don't just assume that what you've seen here, which is not legal advice today, you can just go and implement. It is well worth your while and very, very important to engage with experts. Labor law experts, and NEASA is a great option to engage with to help you walk through this compliance challenge and tackle this fight from a position of strength. All the best out there, and we'll see you soon.